Everything changed the night Amy slid the divorce papers across the kitchen table in our house outside Tulsa. It was raining lightly, tapping against the kitchen window above the sink. I remember that because the room itself was too quiet. No television, no dishwasher running, no hum of conversation to soften what was happening. Just Amy, standing across from me in a gray sweater, her face pale and unreadable. She pushed the envelope toward me with 2 fingers. No anger, no tears. She would not even look at me. I opened it and saw the first page. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My name, her name, 10 years reduced to margins, signatures, and legal spacing. I looked up at her. Amy. She folded her arms, staring somewhere past my shoulder. It's better this way. That was all she gave me. I waited for more. An explanation. A confession. Something human. But she stood there cold and still, like if she moved too much, she might break. So I signed every page in silence. When she walked away, I thought that was the end. Later that night, I saw what the camera caught. Before that night, our life looked ordinary from the street. The porch light came on at dusk. My truck sat in the driveway. Amy's little blue sedan was usually parked beside it, angled too close because she never cared about straight lines. Neighbors waved when they passed. Nothing about our house suggested trouble. I worked long shifts as an electrical engineer, mostly industrial contracts around Tulsa and the surrounding towns. I left early, came home tired, and measured time by deadlines, invoices, and the smell of dust on my work clothes. Amy worked part-time at a small bookstore near downtown. She said she liked the quiet there, the shelves, the people who still bought paperbacks with cash. Evenings had become routine in the worst way. We ate dinner in front of the television more often than at the table. We argued about utility bills, grocery totals, and whose turn it was to call the plumber. Then we'd drift into separate silences until bedtime. What we never discussed was the distance growing between us. For months, I ignored the signals because ignoring them was easier than naming them. Amy started going to bed early, always saying she had a headache or needed sleep. She stopped asking how my day went. If I told her something anyway, she nodded without hearing it. Sometimes I woke at 2 in the morning and found her missing from bed. I would walk through the dark house and see a strip of light under the laundry room door. Inside, she sat on the folding chair beside the dryer, shoulders hunched, phone face down on the machine beside her. If I asked what she was doing, she'd say she couldn't sleep. I accepted every weak explanation she offered. People go through phases, I told myself. Stress changes people. Marriage has seasons. I said those things because the alternative required courage I did not have yet. It meant admitting that the woman across from me each night was living somewhere I could no longer reach. Looking back, the signs were not subtle. They were only inconvenient. After she went to the bedroom, I started moving my things into the guest room. I did it quietly, carrying shirts, work boots, old binders, and the spare charger from my nightstand like a man following instructions he never agreed to. The house felt borrowed already. Every hallway seemed narrower than it had that morning. In the closet beside the guest room, I reached for a plastic tote stacked under Christmas boxes and a broken lamp we kept meaning to throw away. When I pulled it forward, something small slid loose and struck the floor. An old handheld camera, silver body, scratched lens cover, dead-looking screen. Amy's. She used to carry it everywhere years ago. Birthdays, road trips, backyard cookouts, the dog chasing leaves in the yard. Then phones got better, life got busier, and the camera disappeared into storage with everything else we no longer used. I picked it up out of habit. The battery icon blinked red when I powered it on, but it held long enough to open the files. There were old clips first, Christmas lights, her mother laughing, me grilling burgers in a younger body with less gray in my beard. Then I saw a row of recent dates. My stomach tightened. I opened the last file. Amy sat alone at the kitchen table, the same one where she had handed me the papers. Her hair was unwashed, eyes swollen, voice barely above a whisper. She looked into the lens like she was speaking to someone who could not answer. Kyle called again. The clip ended. I opened another. He says if I miss one payment, he'll come to the house. Another. I can't let Daniel know. He'll try to fix it. Another. I don't know how much longer I can keep this away from him. There were 23 videos in total. No affair. No secret new life. No confession of leaving me for someone better. Just fear, recorded in private pieces. Money transfers. Threats. Apologies to a camera. Dates I recognized from arguments we'd had. Nights she claimed headaches. Mornings she barely spoke. Suddenly, every strange month made sense. The divorce papers were not an exit. They were a shield she thought she had to raise alone. I did not wake her. I did not storm into the bedroom or demand names, dates, or reasons. I stood in the guest room with that dying camera in my hand and felt something inside me settle into place. Anger would have been easier. Hurt would have been familiar. What replaced them was colder than both. By sunrise, I had watched every video twice. Amy had not left me because she stopped caring. She had been trying to move danger away from me the only way she understood. She believed if she cut herself loose from our life, Kyle would stop circling the house, stop using my job, my schedule, and our address as leverage. She thought silence was protection. People make desperate decisions when fear becomes routine. I showered, dressed for work, and made coffee like any other Thursday. When Amy came into the kitchen, she looked surprised to find me calm. Her eyes were swollen from crying sometime after I'd gone to the guest room. She reached for a mug without meeting my gaze. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. "Enough," I said. She nodded once, waiting for accusations that never came. If you've made it this far, this story clearly caught your attention. If you're enjoying it, drop a like on the video. It helps me see what kind of stories you want more of next. Let's keep going. I let her leave for the bookstore. At 8 sharp, I called my attorney the moment his office opened. He answered with the clipped tone of a man already halfway through 3 problems. "Morning, Daniel." I reviewed the papers. And freeze everything. Silence held for a second, meaning no filing, no notices, no asset movement, no next steps until I say otherwise. He knew me long enough not to waste time asking if I was emotional. Something changed. "Yes." "Can you discuss it?" "Not yet." Another pause, then the rustle of paper on his desk. "I'll hold the petition, but if there's liability involved, I need facts soon." "You'll have them." When I hung up, I opened a legal pad and wrote 3 words across the top. Dates, names, money. Then I added a 4th. Kyle. I spent the next hour listing every detail I remembered from the videos. Amounts transferred, references to threats, mention of a Baton Rouge number, the note that he had been seen near my work site. Once written down, it stopped feeling like chaos. It became structure. That mattered to me. Problems with structure can be solved. At noon, Amy texted only one sentence. "Thank you for signing quietly." I read it twice, then set the phone face down. She still believed the papers were the story. They were only the cover page. I watched every video again that afternoon with a yellow legal pad beside me and the blinds half closed. I no longer viewed them as confessions. They were evidence. Fear has a pattern when you replay it enough times. So does extortion. In the first clips, Amy still sounded hopeful. She believed 1 payment would make Kyle disappear. Then 2. Then 1 more because he claimed expenses. By the later videos, her voice had changed. She spoke in short sentences, like every word cost energy she no longer had. I wrote down dates, names, amounts, and any phrase that could be traced later. $300, $700, $1,500 wired through apps I recognized. Gift cards purchased in cash. A cashier's check she said she lied to me about. None of it random. Every demand rose slightly from the one before it, the way a man tests how much pressure wood can take before it splits. Kyle had known where we lived for months. In one recording, Amy said she saw a dark truck idle across from our mailbox before sunrise. In another, she whispered that someone walked past the backyard fence after midnight and stopped long enough for the dog to growl. She never called police because shame had already done its work on her. People protecting secrets rarely protect themselves. Then I found the detail that stayed with me longest. In one clip, while adjusting the camera, she accidentally showed part of a text thread reflected in the microwave door. The sender used a Louisiana number, Baton Rouge area code. In another video, she said Kyle claimed to be doing contract work through a supplier tied to my company and had seen me at the West Substation project. That changed everything. This was not random chaos drifting into our marriage. It was methodical movement toward income, routine, and leverage. He had not merely found Amy online or by chance. He had studied where pressure points lived, then applied them one at a time. I circled the worksite note 3 times. A man willing to place himself near my job while threatening my wife was not bluffing for grocery money. He was building confidence through proximity. By evening, My legal pad held 4 full pages. I made copies, scanned them to a drive, and locked the originals in my desk drawer. When Amy came home, I was grilling chicken on the patio like any other Thursday. She looked at me strangely. I understood why. The only thing more unsettling than anger is calm when it has a reason. The situation moved beyond our marriage the moment I confirmed Kyle had taken contract work through a regional supplier connected to my company under a different last name. He had not simply targeted Amy. He had placed himself near my job, near my paycheck, near the structure of our daily life. That kind of overlap does not happen by accident. I spent Friday morning at the office reviewing vendor lists under the pretense of checking delayed materials. Names, invoices, temporary labor approvals, subcontract badges. On the 3rd sheet I found him. Kyle Mercer. But the camera videos had referenced Kyle Morrow. Different surname. Same first name. Same Louisiana number attached to an emergency contact line on the form. He had changed one label and assumed no one would compare records. I printed everything and drove straight to my attorney. Daniel closed his office door after 10 minutes of reading. "This is no longer divorce prep," he said. "I know. You have extortion, possible fraud, harassment, identity irregularities, and potential workplace access concerns. I know that too." He looked at me carefully. "Does Amy understand how serious this is? She thinks she made a private mistake." He leaned back in his chair. Private mistakes do not generate false identities and supplier badges. By noon, he had contacted law enforcement through a client he trusted in Tulsa County. He also told me to preserve every file, every note, every bank statement, every text screenshot Amy still had. No edits. No summaries. Originals only. That afternoon, I met with security management at my company. They reviewed gate logs and badge scans while pretending the meeting was routine. Kyle had entered 2 sites in the last 6 months, including the West substation where Amy said he had seen me. Seeing the timestamp in black ink did something strange to me. It removed imagination. Fear lives large in uncertainty. Facts shrink it to size. When I got home, Amy was sitting at the kitchen table holding a mug she had not touched. She looked tired enough to disappear. "We need to talk," I said. Her hands trembled immediately. "I know." "No," I told her gently. "You know about shame. I'm talking about crimes." She stared at me as if I had spoken another language. For the first time since she slid those papers across the table, I saw that she truly believed she was the problem. Kyle had counted on that more than anything. 2 days later, I drove to Amy's sister's rental house in Broken Arrow. The place sat at the end of a narrow street lined with chain-link fences and early spring weeds. A child's bicycle lay on one side of the porch. Wind moved an old flag that had lost most of its color. Nothing about the house suggested turning points, but that is where ours waited. Amy opened the door before I knocked. She looked smaller than I remembered, though only 48 hours had passed. Exhaustion does that. It shrinks people inward. She wore one of my old hoodies over leggings, sleeves pulled past her hands. In the kitchen, she held a coffee mug with both hands as if heat alone could steady her. Her sister left us without speaking. I set my laptop on the table and sat across from Amy. She kept watching the screen, not me, like she already knew judgment lived inside it. "I found the camera," I said. Her fingers tightened around the mug. "I should have destroyed it. You should have told me." Tears gathered immediately, but she blinked them back. "I was trying to keep you out of it." I opened the final video and pressed play. Amy on screen looked worse than the woman across from me. Hollow-eyed, whispering, saying she could not do one more payment and did not know how to make him stop. When the clip ended, real Amy covered her mouth and bent forward, elbows on knees. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the only 2 questions that mattered. "How much did you pay him?" She lowered her hands slowly. 32,000. Maybe a little more. I nodded once. "Do you still have the messages?" She stared at me in disbelief. "That's all you want to know? That's all that matters right now?" Something in her face broke then, but not the way I expected. It was relief, mixed with grief, mixed with the shock of finding out the fire you hid alone had already been seen. "I saved everything," she said. "Cloud backups, screenshots, email receipts. I was too scared to delete it." "Good. You're not asking if I loved him." "No. You're not asking if I cheated." I met her eyes for the first time that day. If I thought this was about romance, I wouldn't be here. She cried quietly after that. No dramatics. just the sound of a person who had been carrying weight past capacity. I slid a notepad across the table. "Start with the first payment," I said. After that meeting, events moved without emotion. Amy sent screenshots through the night from an old laptop at her sister's house. Messages, payment confirmations, call logs, fake apologies from Kyle followed by fresh demands an hour later. The files arrived in batches, each one cleaner than memory and uglier than rumor. I built folders by date. Daniel forwarded copies to detectives assigned through Tulsa County and a financial crimes contact in Oklahoma City. My company's security team added badge records and vendor paperwork. What had looked to Amy like private shame now sat in organized timelines under labels no one could soften. Extortion, fraud, stalking. Kyle, meanwhile, kept messaging as if nothing had changed. At 11:14 p.m., he wrote, "Need 2,000 by noon, or I visit your husband at work." At 6:02 a.m., "Don't test me today." At 9:47 a.m., "I'm already in town." Each new threat only strengthened the case. Detectives told Amy not to block him. Do not engage unless instructed. Preserve everything. Let him keep choosing badly. That was harder for her than people realize. Silence feels passive when you are scared. In truth, it is often discipline. On the third day, they had enough for warrants tied to accounts, devices, and identity records. On the fifth day, they confirmed he was staying at a short-term rental on the north side of town under another variation of his name. By then, I had stopped asking for updates more than once daily. Facts arrive when ready. Anxiety only paces the hallway. 8 days after the kitchen table, my phone rang at 4:18 p.m. Daniel's voice was steady. "They picked him up 20 minutes ago." I looked out at the backyard fence where our dog used to growl. "Any trouble?" "None worth mentioning." He was surprised. That pleased me more than anger ever could. Later I learned he talked too much in the interview room. Men who live by manipulation often mistake every room for another stage. He denied, minimized, contradicted himself, then explained details no innocent person would know. Charges followed. I did not need to see it happen. I had no interest in handcuffs, parking lot footage, or dramatic endings. Justice is usually fluorescent lights, paperwork, and a tired detective asking the same question 3 different ways. That night, Amy texted only 4 words. "Is it really over?" I waited a minute before replying. For him, yes. For us, I did not know yet. When the call came confirming charges had been filed and bond conditions set, I felt nothing dramatic. No rush of victory. No sense that scales had balanced. The world did not pause to honor pain repaired. The refrigerator still hummed. Traffic still moved past the front of the house. A dog barked somewhere down the block. Ordinary sounds returned first. I stood in the kitchen with my phone in one hand and looked at the same table where Amy had slid the divorce papers toward me 9 days earlier. The wood grain carried a faint scratch from when we moved in and dragged a lamp across it. I had noticed that scratch 100 times and never remembered it until then. Amy came back to the house that evening. She parked in the driveway slowly, as if unsure she still belonged there. When she stepped inside, she carried no bags except a purse and a folder of documents Daniel had requested. She looked cleaner, steadier, but still tired in the way sleep cannot fix. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. This time there was no envelope between us. No forms. No signatures. No stage distance. Only 2 people surrounded by what had survived. For a while neither of us spoke. The silence was different now. Not avoidance. Not punishment. Just room for truth to arrive without being rushed. Finally she said, "I thought if I pushed you away, you would lose interest." "I know. I thought if you hated me, you'd be safer." I nodded once. "You don't get to decide safety for both of us." Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. "I know that now too." I folded my hands on the table and chose my words carefully. Anger can speak fast. Meaning usually takes longer. "The one thing I cannot live through again," I said, "is being shut out of the truth." She inhaled sharply, then lowered her head for a moment. When she looked back up, she nodded. "I understand." There was no promise after that. No dramatic reconciliation. No sudden return to who we had been. Some damage does not heal in a sentence, and trust does not come back because danger leaves. But for the first time in a long while, we were speaking to each other instead of around each other. That was small. It was also real. Later that night, after Amy went upstairs, I opened the guest room closet and found the old camera where I had left it on a folded blanket. The battery was dead now. Screen black. Lens scratched. It looked harmless enough, like something no one would notice at a garage sale. I turned it over once in my hands, then placed it in the bottom drawer of the dresser and closed it. Some things in loudly. Doors slam. Voices rise. Papers get signed under fluorescent lights while strangers stamp dates on broken promises. People often think that is where endings live. They do not. Some things, in the moment you finally understand them. The moment confusion becomes pattern. The moment fear gets named. The moment silence stops controlling the room. I walked back through the hallway and stood in the kitchen. The house was still the same. Same table. Same window over the sink. Same faint rain smell drifting in through the screen. But I was not. And that difference was enough. That's the end of this story. If you made it all the way here, consider subscribing to stay with us. I've placed a couple of recommended videos on screen for you. Pick one and keep watching. I'll see you in the next story.